Today in class you played a game called roller derby. You looked at all the possible outcomes in a situation and thought about which ones were more likely or less likely to occur. You also thought about a strategy for the game. So for your homework, please complete page 10 and correct it with this caption. So what's the probability of getting a sum of 5 when you roll two number cubes? Well, looking at my table here, I can see a sum of 5 1, 2, 3, and 4 times out of a total of 36 outcomes. So I'm going to write P sum of 5 equals 4 out of 36. And I can simplify that to 1 out of 9. What's the probability of getting a sum greater than 9 when you roll two number cubes? Looking at all my sums that are larger than 9, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So my probability of getting a sum greater than 9 would be 6 out of 36, or 1/6. Ella is playing roller derby with Carlos. Ella places all her markers in column 1, and Carlos places all of his markers in column 12. What is the probability that Ella will win? Ella needs to get a sum of 1. And if you remember from your roller derby game, the smallest sum that you can make when you roll a 1 and a 1 is a sum of 2. So unfortunately, Ella is never going to be able to make a sum of 1. And so all of Ella's markers are going to remain on that game board forever. It is impossible for Ella to win, therefore it's a probability of 0. What's the probability that Carlos will win? Well, for Carlos, he put all of his markers in column 12. And since he's playing against Ella, and it's impossible for her to ever roll a sum of 1, Carlos just has to be able to make 12 in at least one way. And if you think about how you were able to make a sum of 12, that was by rolling a 6 and a 6. So he can keep playing forever until he gets enough 6 and 6 rolls to remove all of his markers. It might take a while, but compared to Ella, his win is certain. The probability would be 1 or 100% that he would win. In some board games, you can end up in jail. One way to get out of jail is to roll doubles. What's the probability of getting doubles on your turn to get out of jail? So looking at our table down here, how many of them were doubles? I see a 1 and a 1, a 2 and a 2, 3 and a 3, 4 and a 4, 5 and a 5, and a 6 and a 6. So the probability of rolling doubles in this case would be 6 out of 36 total outcomes, or 1 out of 6. Now let's check your table where you wrote each probability as a fraction, decimal, or percent. 1/4 or 25% is equivalent to 25 hundredths. 1/8 is equivalent to 125 thousandths, or 12.5%. 33 1/3% is equivalent to 1/3 as a fraction, or 0.3 repeating as a decimal. 10% is equivalent to 1/10, as well as 1/10 as a decimal. 0.16 repeating is equivalent to 1/6 as a fraction, and we can say about 16 and that 666 that goes on forever, that's 16 2/3 of a percent. If you rounded that to 16.6% or 16.7 or even 17%, that's approximate. And then finally we have the decimal 0.05 or 5 hundredths. That's equivalent to 5%. And as a fraction, you could think about how 5% is 5 out of 100 and then simplify that. So if I divide the top and the bottom by 5, for example, I'll get to 1/20th. And that would be my fraction equivalent for 5%.